Awesome. Well, congrats again, kind of piggybacking off of
Thanks.
that. And congrats on the film. Though I have a slight bone to pick with you, which is you've affected my eating habits because they they sent the hot sauce and I went and I bought the onion rings.
The
Well,
Funyuns. I know. They're everything. There's flaming hot sushi, there's flaming hot ice cream. It's
yeah.
everywhere.
I mean, so the funny thing is like I'm not a bit I don't really like cheese, so like the OGs are not really my thing. So anything like the Fritos, anything that was a regular thing with Flamin' Hot, after I watched them like during the movie, I was going, yeah, I'm gonna
Really?
buy them. I gotta try it. It's not why you made the movie, but it's funny that like I can't have been the only one to have been like, this is working as like food ASMR in a way.
Right? I know. Well, we it's so funny because same thing. When I grew up with flaming hot Cheetos, and
Yeah.
the first time I ate a regular bag of Cheetos, I go, "Oh, I got a bad bag." And they
Yeah.
go, "No, that's the regular Cheetos." And I go, "Oh, they make regular ones?"
Yeah. No, it's so funny how and you learn this, I think, as you grow up. The things you liked as a kid sometimes are very normal and everyone knows, and sometimes they're very culturally specific, and you have to like
Yeah.
the world to go, oh wait, people don't know this? Like, oh,
Yes, I know. I
and
know.
that
What's your culture?
I mean, I'm a generic white Jewish guy from Brooklyn, so like, I don't
Oh,
know.
you have tapatio t-shirt. You have a
Yeah, oh
tapatio.
no, I knew what I was doing for you.
I
Uh,
love it.
but it was like I remember one as a kid. I think
Oh my God, I have mine here.
there you go. Well, see, I used mine, so it's halfway done. As a kid, I like like smoked salmon. I called lox because that's like a New
Yeah.
York thing. And I remember the first time someone going and someone telling me like, oh, they don't know what you mean by that. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
really?
interesting.
Oh, how funny. But that happens all the time because I grew up in Texas and Texicans, as we call ourselves, are very, very unique as well. And so my husband's Mexican from Mexico. And so he always goes, "What do you call that?" And I'll say something and he's like, "That's not what that's called." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it is."
We could have almost seen each other from our houses growing up. How is this so different? But I think the movie
Exactly.
that does that so well because it is so specific. But I feel like I've talked about this several times this year because of movies that are doing it well. When you are specific, it does become more universal. I think if you make the movie
Yeah.
for everyone in a way, if that's your thought process, it's for no one because who
Yeah.
nobody has a universal experience. Everybody has their own, everyone's the star of their own movie. Sometimes you're the star of
Yeah. I always say that. And when I read this script and learned of Richard Montañez, I was like, oh my God, like
yeah.
everything lit up in my body because I said, this is my superpower. This movie, I know it in my head. I see it tonally, stylistically. I saw the edit. I knew the rewrite. Like it just clicked for me because it was so specifically Chicano and so specifically Mexican American. And then, that being my North Star, authenticity being my North Star, made it so broad and universal. It's a pretty interesting trick that we do there.
Which I think is such a underutilized idea, which is don't shy away from I'm telling someone's story. Like I'm telling, and you know what? They don't necessarily look like everyone who's going to watch the movie, but because it's not all about that. It's about emotions. It's about the American dream. It's about all these things that everyone kind of can gravitate towards, but it's seen through one specific person. It becomes
Yeah.
way more relatable than I think what we are saying. If it was just like if we made this up, if it was just like some guy working at the chip factory, you wouldn't care because it would be like, why?
No.
What's going to ground me? And I think his home life, his background, the idea of literally essentially being ignored and looked past is what
Yeah.
everyone can relate to. No matter why you're being looked past, everyone has that feeling.
Yeah, I really wanted to explore this theme of like what happens when opportunity is not distributed equally. Everybody has talent. You could be talented, I could be talented, but to get opportunity, that's not available for everybody. And so I loved Richard's naive perseverance. He just kept asking, but why not me? But
Yeah.
why not me? And early on, I knew I was like, I'm not going to make a movie about the flaming hot Cheeto. Like, if that's the movie you guys want to make, I'm out. I do want to make a movie about his life because that man's life is very interesting.
Oh yeah, because like Food That Built America or whatever, the TV's got the how the food's made covered, and everyone watches it. It's great. But I think that
Yeah.
it speaks to
Yeah,
like,
who knew ketchup had such an influence on us? Thank
yeah,
you.
who knew Tetris was a Cold War thing? You're just like, oh, okay, cool. But I think it's, you want enough of that to be
Yes.
like, oh, fascinating. But I think what you
Yeah.
smartly kind of gravitated towards was, but if you don't get to the almost Disney life of this person, you're not gonna care. Like the food is
Yeah.
fine, but if you're not invested in him,
Yeah.
it's not gonna feel like it. No one's gonna know why you made it, first of all, let
Yeah.
alone see it. And I think that's the thing. We want to see things people are passionate about.
Yeah. And also like the relevance and the why now of this movie
Yeah,
is super important. And that's something that drove me as well. I was like, I haven't seen this movie.
yeah,
And I think biopics are so formulaic in general that to break that up and to somehow, especially like when you know the end, like, okay, this
yeah.
guy invented the Cheeto. So like, why am I on this journey? Like Titanic, the boat's gonna sink. Why are we on this journey? It's like you have to get so specific into one way in and then, tell the broader story through that one POV.
Oh yeah. And I think the what you said earlier is also true about everyone has a challenge. Everyone has something that they're feeling that they can't reach. And I think it's true. And I think the way that you do it, it speaks to it also because, I think someone not thinking too hardly about it could go, oh wait, she's like a successful actress. Like that's, what is she not getting? But everyone, no matter what level you're on, goes, yeah, but this isn't being offered, or this person says I'm not right because of something that like that is just such a
Yeah.
universal thing. And I think the fact that it comes out in the filmmaking, and not necessarily in that you're like jumping out in front of the screen and going, look, here's the point, but by making something entertaining and very open to people, but also not shying away from that idea of if you're paying attention, this is not just his story, it's my story, it's everyone's story. Everyone in that room, it's their story. It's what makes it, I think, it lasts. Because why,
Yeah.
it's the reason you can buy the hot sauce. It's the reason the hot sauce is here. It's the reason everything kind of happens. Is
Yeah.
we can feel why you wanted to make it.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot because that was the depth of the film really was like, oh my gosh. I wanted to invite people to this conversation. I didn't want to hit anybody over the head with it. I didn't, I'm a big fan of Adam McKay and his movies and that inspired this idea of like I have to set the table
Yeah.
for some people who don't understand our struggles as Mexican Americans, as white passing people, but also people of color, and so it's like, well, we get discriminated, we get this. And so for me, I wanted to just, invite people in to, oh, I didn't know that happened in the
Yeah.
60s. Really? Oh, I didn't know why. Like, why do people hate them so much at the factory? You're like, racism.
Yeah. No, it's a
Or,
really simple answer, actually. It's one word I can.
yeah, or classism. More than racism was classism. It was like, no, 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 janitors, are at the bottom.
It's
Please
the
don't speak.
Yeah, it's the passive racism of like, oh, I'm not a racist, but you're the janitor. You're good where you are. Oh, I'm good
Yeah.
where I. What does that mean? And like, if you
Yeah.
break it down, you're like, oh, it's still racism, but you're just
Yeah.
it
What?
means like you don't. Yeah, it's
Even his own family, even his own father, who was like, "Oh, look, I got you a better job." He's like, as a janitor, and he goes, "Yeah," and he's like, "Okay, so like I'm going to be president of the janitors, king of the janitors. Like that's all I can be. Like why?" And so I really I love that point of
yeah.
like, people want you to stay in your lane, and sometimes you just can't.
No, and I think that also is part of the specificity being universal because it could so easily be translated to, a generation ago with, well, why are you going to college? Get a job. Why are you, going to grad school? Get it. Whatever the thing is, the here's what you're kind of expected to do because that's what was always been done, is so easy to extrapolate here. And I think again, while doing it in a way where no one's overtly thinking about it, they're enjoying this movie where they're going like, I really hope we wins at the end. Like you're getting the movie feels, which is the Trojan horse
Yeah.
wall. And I think
It
that's
is. It was definitely a Trojan horse. I remember we were shooting one of these emotional scenes, and it was really a tough scene for Jesse and Emilio, who plays his father. And I yell cut, and the cameraman's crying, and the cameraman's wiping his tears, and he goes, "I thought this is a movie about Cheetos." We're like,
yeah,
why am I crying? Like
such a
that surprise
dig.
of like I didn't expect this out of this movie is also a nice twist.
Oh yeah, and I think that's the other thing that I'd noticed even back when it had come out, the sort of surprising nature of people responding to it and going, I wasn't expecting that, or like just because I think some people were aware of the story just because it was just interesting enough and
Yeah.
just different enough that it broke into the news. Um,
Yeah.
if you didn't, it was well, I've seen a movie before. I know where he's gonna end up at the end. Like how is that gonna happen? But because that's not
Yeah.
the point, I think people get roped in and don't realize how much they're being affected by the other things going on because they're not, like you said, banging it overhead. It's not, we all know the movies that do that where you're like, half speed, I would have got the same point.
Yeah. Or like it's 40 minutes too long of that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
It's like,
so yeah, it's definitely uh I think structure of film is important. And I don't know if you noticed, but like the film's 96 minutes. It has
I always
pace, it
notice.
moves. It and I built it that way. I wanted it to move. We need this to every single scene has to service something. There's just not a lull. There's never a lull. The minute you're laughing, I hit you with a crying scene, and then the next you're crying, and then we hit you with it. You don't have time to catch up, and then the movie's over, and you're like, I just feel the feels. I don't know, and so I wanted that. I think, when you are in, a lot of people figure it out in the edit, but like I knew the edit as we were shooting. I knew exactly where everything went, and we shot it modular and we shot it like Legos. We're like, okay, we could do this, or this, or depended, how we
Yeah.
wanted to pull the emotional strings and influence the audience in that moment. And I think, it has to do with what you just said.
Sure. And I think the fact that it wasn't finding it in the edit and going, okay, we're taking the 2.5 hour movie and making it 90 minutes, that can work. And it has worked, but it's a lot harder to make it flow in the way that it does because inevitably you're like, well, I'm cutting the scene down too much, or I don't have
Yeah.
connective tissue here because that's your plan. I think everything flows real well, and there isn't a scene that you ever feel like is rushed. And there's also never a scene where you go like, spending a lot of time on the recipe or something. There's just enough time that
Right.
especially like that's a great example. You need enough time to get the frustration of, wait, this is hard. Like he had an idea, but actually doing it, oh, it's all well and good. I have a recipe. Oh yeah, you did it. It's a terrible recipe at first. Like we got to actually make it good. Like that's a thing that has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, in his life, the challenge we had when we were writing the script was he had a lot of wins.
Yeah.
So he had a win and then he would have a blowback, and then he had a win and then he had a blowback, and then he had a win. So, I mean, there was more even originally in the script. And I was like, oh my God, I think he has too many wins. Like, if
Yeah.
we're going to crescendo to the big win,
Yeah.
even just calling the CEO, that was a win. And then making the recipe, that was a win. Then calling the CEO, that was a win. And then, so, to show the setbacks as well, so that you're reset every time and that we earn the end of the movie, which is like, no, but what he really did was this. And so
Yeah.
that was hard to structure.
Oh yeah, because I think you want to avoid the thing where people go, oh well, this could have been its own movie, and that's sometimes a compliment, like oh you found something really interesting, but a lot of times it's kind of a backhanded one where they're like, I would have just rather that been the story, or that needed more time, and I think here even just the getting it to be a success and then becoming part of corporate. I think in lesser hands, you would have had that feeling. You would have gone, well, this is 5 minutes of the movie. That's the story. I think here it just feels like part of the story that you want to be watching. Like you said, the progression of, well, this is where we need to get him. And I think getting him there in this amount of time will get the right amount of feeling also, because it's a movie. You want to, obviously, the first thing is you want to be happy. If you're not happy with the movie, what was the point? But then, be nice
Yeah.
people saw it and enjoyed it and said nice things about it. Like it's nice when that all
Yeah.
happens at once. And I think,
It is nice. We, as filmmakers, we make a piece of art and we just hold it in our hand and we're like showing the world and hoping it's received with like the love and intention that we made it. And because that last night at the Critics Choice Association, I was like, I know you get a lot of sentiments when a film comes out back at you, and I said tonight I'm on the thank you side as opposed to the fu side, to critics, because they really out of the gate uplifted the film in a way that made people go, oh wait, what, there's something here.
uh,
And that was important. Words matter. Their words mattered. And so to um have it been received with the intention of how we built it. We built it to land in a certain way, and they got it. I remember there was this one review early on in like the toe dip screenings, and she was like, "Why are you glorifying fast food?" And her whole review was about fast food, and I was like, I don't think you got the
Yeah,
point of the movie.
and
You
like
didn't
that,
get it.
and like I understand the like fleeting thought of that. Like, listen, I love this movie. One of my favorite movies this year is Air, and like, sure, that's about $1 billion company. I don't really love billionaires. Like, I'm poor, but it's an entertaining movie about a good idea and like a mom who loves her son. Like, I can focus on that point and be like, you know what? Yeah, Phil Knight has a lot of money and he probably has too much, but like, I don't know. I'm not gonna solve that problem. I'm an idiot. So I think it's funny
Yeah.
when people do that. Also, as a member of Critics' Choice, I would just do the back pat for a
Oh
second.
yes.
Thank
Good,
you for the
good, good.
compliment.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
true. I think a lot of times because it's the job, because it's volume, and like, we put out 3, 4 reviews a week sometimes, you don't think about the words in a way. And I do try to, at least when I
Yeah.
can, remember, especially if I don't like something, that's when it's like, well, it's completely valid not to like something. And it's my job to say if I don't like it, but you don't not like the person. Like,
Yeah.
listen, if I didn't like the film, it doesn't mean I don't like you. It means something
Yeah.
connect. And like I frustrate people because I think 9 times out of 10 my negative reviews are didn't work for me. I guess like you see what you think. Like maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
People want to
Yeah.
hear you don't like.
Or to be articulate. Like I think it
Yeah.
was like Hillary Clinton who says, criticism I listen to,
No.
that is not,
Yeah.
I forget, it was a really great quote. She said, you got to be willing to take criticism, but not something else. I can't remember,
Yeah.
haters is a
Yeah.
different thing than criticism. And I think, you know, I was prepared and armed and ready for, this, like, maybe you just don't get it.
Yeah.
But the overwhelmingness of even people go, I didn't like the movie, but I get what she tried to do.
That
I
works.
get what, whatever. That was like great. I will take that.
You know what? It means
But
I get
yeah, I
another
was,
crack at you next time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that filmmakers, I always joke, the worst thing they ever want to hear is like, what was for dinner after the movie? Like nobody has a thought about the movie. Just like, all right, that was fine. What's next?
yeah,
Even like I'd rather hear you not like it and tell me why you didn't like it. Maybe you found something that I didn't, or maybe you're thinking of that thing that I secretly hope nobody noticed. That I was like, God, I hope no one notices. I couldn't get that in. So it's
oh,
react
how fun.
it's reactions and it's passion and it's having wanting to have the conversation with the film in whatever way it is, as opposed
Mhm.
to
Yeah, the indifference
yeah,
kills you.
sure.
No, and that's why, the film says something. And I do think, like anything I direct, because I've been directing for a long time, and I choose projects like that. What are we saying?
Yeah,
I got a really funny comedy from Universal, and it was so funny. It was so funny. You couldn't turn a page without laughing. But I didn't know what it was about.
yeah,
I was like, I don't, look, it's funny. I just don't know what we're saying. And I don't really get the point and the why and the purpose. And those things for me are a big bar in any time I direct or need to tell a story, is because everything's going to hang off you
yeah.
asking a hypothetical question to the audience and then either answering it or searching for that answer. But, having some sort of aim,
Yeah.
I think is super important.
Or having the feeling that like I'm right to tell the story, or in a perfect world, I'm the only one who can tell the story. And like that's a great
Yeah.
example. Everyone can tell this story. Anyone who's good with a camera will be able to tell this story. It's funny. It's already ready. Like you don't need me, or like I'm not utilizing my skills. I'm just doing a job, and like doing a job is great, but you have a finite amount of time to do this job, and especially to direct, and with wanting to act or wanting to like see your family once in a while. Like I don't want to just
Yeah.
make it to make it. I think I'd rather see 10 more Flamin' Hots than the funniest comedy of the year. As much as sounds like I want to watch that movie, so you sold me for that one too. But I think as a way to wrap this up, I think you hit on exactly why something like this needs to exist. Because if you think that I have something to say and I want to say it, and I want to see it, of course people are going to want to see it and want to have that conversation. Because as much as we're all unique, like as a general rule, if you have a sense of something, you're probably not the only one who does. So I think having the
Right.
the sense of this story should be told is as
Yeah.
the biggest
Well, I would rather do 10 more Flaming Hots than one Marvel movie. You know what I mean? Like I love culture defining moments in film, in TV, and that like as I'm reading scripts for my next project, the bar is so high that I'm like, what you just said, I kind of rather be with my son at home. I kind of like it's too hard
Yeah.
to fully give yourself to something you don't really believe is going to move the needle for me, for my community, for women, for my culture. Like I have a different um agenda. And so I really, I actually, I was like, I might get stuck in biopic world because there's so many great
Oh, yeah.
stories that have to be told. And I think, Hollywood defines what heroes look like and they never look like us. And so if I could do 10 more biopics about some amazing human beings from the Latino community, I would do them all.
I would happily see them. Thank you for this movie, and I hope I see more. And you're right. Like, you're in a position where you have the ability to say no, and that's
Mhm.
that's rare. And I imagine there was a point in your career where that wasn't the case. Just like someone give me a job,
Yeah.
with my clothes on. Like I just want to work. Like, and it
Yeah.
becomes I can choose between these things. Oh, now I have people offering me things. Now I'm in a position where, oh, I can basically choose whether to work or not. And if I don't, I can pay my rent. Like it's
Yeah,
such
yeah,
a
yeah. It's
special
definitely a
situation.
place of privilege. Yeah. But in this one, I did not get this job. I was not
Yeah,
given this job. I took this job. You know what I mean? I had to go in and take it. I had to go in and prove I could do it because uh, I didn't have the body of work to
sure.
prove I could do the job, and I couldn't get the job because I didn't have the body of work.
Yeah,
Even though I've been directing for over 10 years, I hadn't done this. And why? Because this movie hadn't been made. There
yeah,
was no comp for it.
yeah,
Like I was like, no, it's going to exist when I make it,
yeah,
and because of that really big undertaking, that's why now I'm getting, offers to direct things is because I finally got a chance to prove, oh, you can do the job. And you're like, yeah, yeah,
yeah. And now you get to
I
be
told
like,
you I could.
told you so. I'm getting picky now, so don't know what to tell you. Uh, Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for the movie. Like I said, it's just
Thank you.
even beyond
No.
it's just it's an entertaining movie that people can sit around and have a good time with, and we need that too. So I think the combination is so rare, and it makes me very excited to see the next one. So you got 9 more to make. So
Oh,
go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Well, I'm so grateful to you for this. And anytime anybody can help me, you know, uplift this film because there aren't a lot of feel good films anymore. Like these
Yeah.
films just aren't made
Oh,
anymore.
yeah.
I was like, I can't watch so many films because I get anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, just horrible things. And with everything happening in the world,
Yeah.
I feel like it is our jobs are more critical than ever to humanize stories, humanize issues. And so for me, I'm like, oh, I do think Flaming Hot's a breath of fresh air when your
It,
world and your life is a little stressful.
1000%. It was for me. I mean, I lost my mother in January, and when I did Sundance, every third movie was a son grieving his mom. Like, nope, not gonna watch that one right now. After the death of the nope, not gonna do that one right
Nope,
now. It's
nope,
like,
nope. Same thing. I can't watch children. Like what was it? Bird Box. It was like, yeah,
yeah.
Sandra Bullock trying to save her children from a monster. I'm like, nope, can't do it, can't do it.
My joke is if a dog gets hurt in the movie, I drop a star off its ranking. You bet if you're gonna hurt an animal, you better have a damn good reason. So it's like,
John Wick,
yeah,
John Wick.
he's killed enough people by now that I forgive him. Or there was a movie, The Rover, years ago, where the end result is Robert Pattinson like killed hundreds of people because they stole his car and it had his dog's body in it. And he was going to bury his dog. I'm like, they all deserve to die. But like,
I am
how
not
bad?
along for this journey. I
Yeah.
do not sign off on this.
But if it's like we have to show how bad the villain is by he shoots a dog, I'm like, no, I've seen the news. I know how bad people are. I didn't need that part. So I love that
Did
this
he
exists
have
as
to
a
do?
counter. Uh,
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a goal. You know what's so funny too is when I started thinking about the kind of movie I wanted to make, I kept landing on I just want to make a feel good movie. Like it wasn't even a genre. It wasn't even like, oh, I want to do a comedy, a biopic, a drama, a thriller. Like it was, I want to do a feel like
yeah,
that's a genre in itself. And I felt like that's also part of why I picked my DP because he goes, it feels like this is a feel good movie. I go, oh, I know. Like, that's what I want to make. I don't want to make some artsy fartsy, like abstract thing. And I was like, no, I want people to walk out feeling a certain way and talking about it. Like, let's go to dinner. Like, what do you think? And or feeling like, wow, that guy did that. Shit, I could do anything.
Right. As opposed to
Yeah.
like, my thought process for the film is we film it from the perspective of the Cheeto, and you're like, oh no. Oh no, this movie's gonna make $6 and no one's gonna like it. That's not what I
Yeah.
want. No, I think
Yeah.
you accomplished it so very well. So you should be
No.
incredibly proud.
Well,
Um,
thank you. I really appreciate it.
thank you. Awesome.